What's up, and welcome to another episode of the Grind Line Podcast. I am your host, Greg. You're listening to episode 205. I am here tonight with Tyler. Ryan's entire family has the plague. It is going around. Tyler is partially plagued and will be muted for most of the episode as to not cough into everyone's ears. You can all thank me later. But Tyler, how are you besides creeping death?
I'm doing fine. It's just that I have a fucking lingering cough from I was sick over Christmas a little bit. So, or I should say a couple days before Christmas. So I'm currently pretty good now. It's just that this cough won't go away. It's ridiculous. But other than that, I'm doing fine. Better than this hockey team. I'll tell you that right now.
It's like the Jekyll and Hyde of the Red Wings right now, which really don't want to talk about this game. They're losing currently 4-0 to the Buffalo Sabres. But the cough thing is no joke. My wife was sick for a bit, and she's probably had a cough for a week and a half now after being actually sick for like 3 days. So it's not fun, but it's going around. Hopefully everyone out there is feeling okay. But we do have a show tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about the Pittsburgh game, and then we did a mailbag. We got several questions from Twitter. We got a question from YouTube. So we're going to go through those. But first, I kind of want to get down to the Penguins game where the Red Wings, I was about to shut that game off. First period, the game 4-0. They came out flat, did not look very good. Lalone said that they played okay. They let Ville Husso out to dry. He ended up getting pulled. Hellberg comes in for the second. The Red Wings claw out of the hole and come back to win in overtime on just a slick setup. Andrew Kopp almost ended it. And then there's a slick setup to Jake Wallman to kill that game. And the Pens fans had to have been super angry. But I mean, it was rust probably for the first period, just shaking that off. The Pens had played the night before. I think they wasted all their energy in the first, and it's a big 2 points.
And the one good thing too about that game is I didn't watch from start to finish. I started watching halfway through. I was busy with some prior commitments, but that game was a kind of a tale. Like, even though it was 3-0, I think the shots were like 14-5 in favor of the Wings or something like that. So they had their chances in that first period. Yeah, it was kind of an onslaught, but I mean, they definitely got their legs under them, and they were able to kind of climb out of that hole and come all the way back.
Darren McCarty said it the best earlier today on Big D Energy on Woodward Sports. He said that those are the kind of games, those are the wins that become important. It's you're taking points from people within your conference, and the Penguins, who right now have 44 points on the season. I mean, it's only going to get harder, and it's games like that at the end of the day and towards the end of the season, when you're trying to play meaningful hockey, if you win games like that, it helps you out down the road.
Because 5-0 Buffalo.
Oh my God, I can't even. Okay, I'm gonna turn it off. But it's games like that help you down the road when you're maybe you hit another rough patch. Hopefully the Wings don't, because they're about to get healthy again. But to beat a good Penguins team like that at home, granted it was on a back-to-back. I mean, David Perron went out there, and to talk about veteran presence, his puck protection, a lot of the game reminded me of Henrik Zetterberg, on how Perron he is a beast on that puck, and he's not letting anyone take it. And he had some really good chances. A lot of the Red Wings had points, but I think Perron and Michael Rasmussen were two of the big ones that really stood out to me last night.
Yeah, he reminds me a lot of Henrik Zetterberg. I know they play a different position. I know Zetterberg played a little bit of wing in his career as well. But, David Perron, he really is kind of a throwback player. He really is. Like, he's not the fastest guy in the world, but he's really good at shielding the puck and kind of just, putting the puck where somebody else isn't. And, when he gets his opportunities, he scores and he'll make some nice passes. He's been one of my favorite free agent acquisitions in a long time. As a Red Wing fan, he really has been a really good acquisition. And in terms of leadership too, he's another guy that, he's won a Stanley Cup. He's been through cup runs. He's done what it takes to win. And he's a great pickup. I wish it was a little bit further down the line, because I don't think this team is quite ready to win yet. But, he definitely gives the team a shot in the arm, and him and Larkin definitely have some good chemistry.
I think Perron, though, like you said, even though we're not at the point where like Perron's one of those last pieces you add to make that Stanley Cup run. I think we're at an important inflection point where adding a guy like Perron helps them take that next step, though. Helps them become that more competitive team, teaches them how to win, teaches them what it takes to like they did claw back from a 4-0 and come back and take it. He's a clutch player. That's the big thing, is that he always comes up clutch, and he's still playing a lot of minutes. David Perron played 19 minutes and 43 seconds in that Pittsburgh game. He was, I mean, their only players above him were Sider, Wallman, and that's about it. Dylan Larkin, Philip Hronik, mostly defense. And then he was the second highest forward in ice time. So it was integral to that game. And then top line playmaker Michael Rasmussen just continues to be impressive with the way he's setting up goals. He had an assist, but he's just flying out there and he's creating opportunities. And again, like we always say, not falling down, able to stay on his skates now, that Michael Rasmussen. But he's using his body to his advantage, and he's making things happen out there. And I can't go an episode without mentioning Jonathan Berggren and what he is able to just do with absolutely nothing. He is a guy that it's to be the most boring, mundane, no chance you're going to get anything, and he flips it right to the front of the net where someone's at. Or he makes a really good stop and spin to get out of danger and open up ice. When we are healthy, if he is sent back to Grand Rapids, it's an absolute crime.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's done everything that has been asked of him to stay, and even more, honestly, even more than I expected. He's been really good, in terms of being on the forecheck, in terms of playing pretty responsibly defensively. And then, he's putting up some numbers too. So I wish he could play a little bit higher up in the lineup, but I understand why he's not at this point in time. As you alluded to, we're starting to get healthy. So, I will say one thing. I don't know about you. I think Soderblom, when he grows into his body, is going to be a force to be reckoned with, not just physically, but like in terms of like being able to do what David Perron does, shield the puck, be able to like, I feel like he's still like, I don't know how to really explain it, but like, he's still like kind of gangly, you know what I mean? He's still kind of like, everything's not smooth and fluid yet. And I think when that comes, I'm not saying he's going to be like a superstar or anything like that, but could he become a guy that like, is a third or fourth line guy that, can put some production or, being on the power play too in front of the net? I don't see why not, especially if he's going to be one of those guys that can kind of shield the puck and dig the puck out of the corners and all, hunt pucks and everything like that. So I really do believe that when he gets everything in sync, he's going to be a really good hockey player.
I think me and Ryan had talked about it on one of the episodes. It is the Soderblom's problem right now is that he either uses his stick or he uses his body, and he doesn't do both of them at the same time. So if he's guarding with his body, it leaves the puck open and he gets stripped, which is why I said I don't really mind if he goes back to Grand Rapids to work on defense, because if he can use his stick, his reach, and his body to keep people off at the same time, then, like you said, he's going to be really good. And at that point, he's a mid-6 guy because he's got the hands. We've seen the hands, and they are good. So
right, not to mention the size, obviously.
And his skating's not bad. That was the biggest thing coming in, was like, how is his skating going to be? And it was fine. And it's more than fine for a guy of his size. But like I said, when he gets to using both those sets of tools that he has together, that is when he is going to be really, really good. And I think that maybe that just means another offseason. But he did have an assist on, I believe it was the Berggren goal last night, where that's another sneaky good group of players right there when you put Berggren and Soderblom together, because, again, they both can make space when they need to. So it's just our bottom six is forming up. Like you said, I think Berggren deserves to be up higher in the lineup with how he's playing. But it is what it is because of the way that the lines are right now. But to kind of recap that Pittsburgh game, the Red Wings did win 5-4 in overtime. They had a Corsi 4 of 50.9. They had a Fenwick 4 of 49.4. So it was about even control in that game, split between Detroit and Pittsburgh, with a PDO of 101.2. So slightly lucky in that game, but nothing crazy. We had more defensive zone starts and offensive zone starts, though. So that's something we are going to want to button up. But our face-off percentage during that game was 53.5. So that is another thing that is turned around whenever, like you said, whenever we win face-offs or the majority of face-offs, we tend to do much better. And we won the majority of face-offs in that game.
And that's without Larkin taking a lot of face-offs, right?
Yeah, Larkin only took one face-off last night. Michael Rasmussen has been coming in to take face-offs for Larkin because of his wrist. But I think that 6-day break was what Dylan Larkin really needed because he scored a beautiful goal. Super quick release. And I think that's what he needed just to rest that wrist and get everything back to normal. He's still not taking faceoffs this game. He might take one or two, but he's not taking what he normally does.
Yeah, he took one tonight because Rasmussen got kicked out of the circle.
Another bit of news before we go on to the mailbag. Jacob Verana was assigned to the Grand Rapids Griffins on conditioning, a 3-game stint. He played last night, and I believe he will play Saturday night and Sunday. And I mean, it's good. It's good to see him come back. We saw a tweet that said he got our cards. Thank you to everyone who did the card drive. He did say during the Grand Rapids Griffins intermission interview that he did get a bunch of cards in mail, wishing him support and good luck. So it's good. Thank you for everyone that participated in that. But it's good to see him back, man. It's good to see him on the ice and hopefully back up into this lineup really quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to see that, we weren't sure whether he was going to play again this year or not, but clearly he's on the trajectory to get back into play, which is great. It's great for the Red Wings. It's great for, the team itself. And then it's also great for him because, he's working through something or, thankfully he's worked through whatever he had to work through. And hopefully, there's no other issues. The other thing I just wanted to bring up too, while we talked about that Pittsburgh game, Jake Wallman hitting the Griddy after he scores the goal. I saw a bunch
it was amazing.
Fucking weird old hockey fans saying that's
mad.
Not cool. They're so
mad.
For the most part, I like the old game better than I like the new game. Like not the 06, 07, but 2010 through 2015, 16. I do like that better. But I will say one thing. I like the Griddy.
All overtime goals need over-the-top sellies. Every single one of them. If you score an overtime game winner, you've got to do something crazy because that was amazing.
I think it's fun. I think it's good for the game. And I think if anything, it'll just help grow the game. So I'm all for it. I love the Griddy, especially if you're a football fan. I mean, it's one of those things that kind of is pretty new to the NFL, but really in terms of showing emotion. And I always talk about this as a baseball fan. There's not enough emotion in that game. So hockey was kind of the same thing. And I'm glad to see that people are starting to embrace it a little bit. Now the old people, whatever, they're not going to embrace it. That it is what it is. So
now the boomers get really mad at any kind of fun. They think you should just play the game like gentlemen. But I saw a Florida Panthers meme group called Over the Boards posted a picture of Wallman doing the Griddy, and it says, "Imagine forking over hundreds of dollars for glass seats at PPG Paints Arena just to end your night seeing this shit." It's just I think it was because it was at home in overtime and just winning and then just popping the Griddy and just going down ice. It was the best thing I've seen in quite a while. I took a GIF of it the second it happened and put it up on Twitter. Got a couple hundred retweets and stuff. So it was definitely a great moment and good for Wallman too, because Wallman, I think, was a sneaky good acquisition by Yzerman, signed him to a 2-year contract. And I think it's paying off because I knew with more minutes he could be good. He showed that in his limited time last season that he could be good. And he got paired with Sider for some shifts. And I think the Wallman-Sider pair is really good. And we talked about Sherratt probably need to be moved off the top pair. I would put Wallman up there because I think that's how good he has been recently.
Yeah, I agree. I think Wallman, I was a little hard on him when he first came up last year. When he came over from St. Louis, I was a little hard. I'm like, I don't know if I see it. But the more I watch him, the more I'm really impressed. He's got a good shot. He's fast, obviously. And he makes smart decisions with the puck. I said to you, I don't know if it was on or off air here, but Sider is getting a little bit too cavalier with the puck, for my liking. There's a lot of turnovers. I think he's starting to watch Philip Hronek a little bit too much in the turnover category there. And I think he needs to watch more of Jake Wallman. And, I agree with you. I think that pair would be good. Both of them are responsible enough defensively, and Wallman's super fast. So I agree. I think it would be a good pair. We've seen it a couple times. I don't know why Newsy doesn't go back to it, but we'll find that out. And I'm sure as the season goes on, we'll see more and more of that.
For sure. So what we got tonight, like I said, is a mailbag. But before we get to the mailbag, because it is a lot of questions, we are going to take a quick break for a word from DraftKings. We'll be right back in just a minute. Hockey fans, light the lamp this winter with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. New customers can bet just $5 pregame moneyline on any NHL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. If that wasn't enough excitement, you can turn small bets into bigger payouts with same-game parlays. Combine multiple bets like which team will win, how many goals will be scored, and more for your shot at an even bigger payout. Download DraftKings Sportsbook app now, use promo code THPN, bet $5 on any NHL team to win their game, and get $150 in free bets if they do. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code THPN. Minimum age and eligibility requirements apply. See show notes for details. And we are back, and we have a mailbag. It's a lot of questions from Twitter. Because content is kind of light because there was a break, it will be next week. We'll actually have a really good show. We have a guest coming on, but we do have a mailbag. So to start off, we have Lafreniere from Twitter at Lafreniere5. Is this the end for Nedeljkovic? That is it is a hard question. And that is because if you look at what Hellberg is doing right now, Hellberg has let in 5 goals. So it's hard to say if it's the end for Ned. Ned isn't on an expiring contract. He hasn't played in a few weeks. He could go to Grand Rapids on a conditioning stint just to I think the problem for Ned right now is confidence. Just to get his confidence back up, get him to play a few games in a row, see how he does down there, because Grand Rapids could use the help too. But I can't say it's the end for Ned right now, especially like I said, after what Hellberg has done tonight. It's about the same thing. So I think your backup's going to be your backup, and they're both going to give you probably similar results. And that's what it's going to be until either Ned is, if Yzerman thinks this is it for Ned, he'll trade him because his contract's up. He's on an expiring contract. He'll try to get something for him. But I can't write him off right now because what's your other option for a backup?
Yeah, I agree. I like Ned. I had really high hopes for Ned. He's still young enough where he could still turn into a goal, the type of goalie that we want him to. He's 26. He hasn't played since February or December 8th against Florida, a 5-1 loss. So he still gave up 5 goals in that game. You can see the games that he's played too. He gave up 5 goals against Buffalo, 4 against Toronto, 4 against LA. So it hasn't been a good season, that's for sure. I wouldn't write him off. I mean, he's still a 26-year-old goaltender with some potential anyways, even if he's not going to be a star goalie. He definitely has the potential. And what we've seen from Hellberg tonight, I mean, Ned could go out there and do the same, if not better. So, in fact, I don't want to call anybody out, but there's a couple goals in this game that didn't even look like Hellberg was trying. So, I don't want to call anybody's character out, but I can only say what I see, and that's what I saw. So, that's my answer to that.
You have to look at it too. Hellberg's on his 3rd team this season because he's been waived, and you don't just waive good. If it was a star backup that was going to come to Detroit and oust Ned, you don't get that off waivers. Like, that's not something that you just pick up and they play amazingly generally. So like I said, Ned this season, 9 games in, he has a save percentage of 88%. It goes against a 4.09. Now, granted, and I believe Max had also said this in an article on The Athletic, that Ned had been given the harder starts. He had been given the tougher matchups. He had been given the road games. And it just seems like the team has played worse in front of him. like complete lack of defensive effort. You can't put every goal that's scored on Ned on him. Just like you can't put every goal that's scored on Husso on him and every goal that's scored on Hellberg on him. But he's looked jumpy at times. He has looked slow and just not confident. It's like when he lets one or two in, he can't shake it. That was what Husso's been good at this season, is that an early goal doesn't really bother Husso. The 4 goals in that game last night were not really much of his fault at all. He was pulled for compassion, basically. Newsy said that we had got him out of there because they just needed a change of pace.
Yeah,
So,
Ken and Mick said something about he's battling the flu too. He's not even backing up tonight.
Yeah, he is sick. And like I said, it's going around. And if Ned can get into Grand Rapids and get some games in and build that confidence back, I mean, it's his spot until he's traded or until the end of the season. I mean, you're not going to waive him because he'll be picked up automatically. And you can carry 23 men. That doesn't mean you can't carry 3 goalies. We can carry 3 goalies on the roster if we need to. We are. So when guys start coming back from IR, that's when you get a little worried. But as of right now, I can't say that's the end for Ned because you've got him. He's your guy, and you're not going to lose him for nothing. So I think that's the answer to that question right there. From Michael on Twitter at Thor_IN. Should we see another Red Wings Griddy Selly this year, or was that a perfect one and done scenario? I think now on the team, only Wallman is allowed to do that. So only if Wallman scores a goal, it's his thing. He's allowed to do it. I don't think anyone else on the team should do it. But I did say that everyone on the team, whoever scores an overtime winner, should just do an over the top Selly. Do like the Shanny. Was it Shanny that slid on his head? Or was it Chelly that did like a head?
It was Chelly. Yeah, it was Chelly at
was it the Alumni
Comerica
Winter Classic game?
No, it was Chelly at Comerica during one of the alumni games when the Winter Classic.
Yeah, the Alumni Winter Classic game.
Right, when the Winter Classic was in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, and he went and did the headstand Selly. So I think if you score an overtime goal, you should be able to do whatever the overtop celebration you want to do. The whole team should get on it, just like they do in football when they score a touchdown. Everyone should come in and do like the eat 'em up and everything. It'd be great. I think that's 100% should happen.
Devontae Smith stealing the packages. Did you see that?
I did. They call that the Brett Favre.
But I agree with you. I think that, Wallman should be the only guy on the Red Wings. And honestly, I think Wallman should be the only guy in the NHL that does it. But I mean, I know that
he's claimed it.
It's going to be Trevor Zegras or one of those, young, flashy players that ends up trying to pull it too. Although I will say one thing, I don't think a lot of people thought of it because it's like you hit the Griddy on, pavement or on grass. It's a little bit different than hitting the Griddy on ice. So,
which makes it even more impressive, right? Like to do that on skates.
But exactly. But I don't think we're going to see that again this year. I think that was kind of a one and done thing. We may see it again in the future, but I don't think this year, unless there's another crazy comeback and Jake Wallman's the guy that scores the goal.
I think it would make over the top Sellies would make for great NHL marketing. I think you'd have him on the Sports Center top 10, like that Griddy from Jake Wallman should be on like a Sports Center top 10 plays of the week. Should be that right there.
I had people that some of my friends that are Michigan fans that aren't really big hockey fans sending me that. They're like, oh my God, are the Red Wings actually fun this year? Because we know the Pistons aren't and Michigan basketball isn't. So, you can certainly rein in some people here if you start winning some games, which obviously they're not doing right now. But anyways.
Absolutely. It should be on every highlight package everywhere. The NHL should be using that for all of their marketing right now. From KMH at KMH and a bunch of numbers on Twitter. Do you see the pairing of Wallman-Seider happening more, or do you see Lalonde holding firm on Sherratt with Seider despite the poor results? Any insight into why this pairing persists? So we had said we'd love to see Wallman. I have said I would love to see Wallman-Seider happen more. It's an exciting pair. They're both fast. Wallman has an offensive upside. We know Seider has an offensive upside, even though he's slumping a little bit this season. Why Sherratt is still there is probably why Sherratt's been there since the beginning. Sherratt is that He's that presence that's kind of there to throw people off their game. He's there to be physical. He's there to make room, but it doesn't seem to be helping Seider because Seider has to double down on defense.
Yeah, you also don't need to put that on your top pair. That doesn't have to be on your top D pair. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that doesn't make sense to me. I get it if you're playing, a Penguins team with Sidney Crosby, or you're playing Connor McDavid or something like that. But even then, I mean, if you look at what Colorado did, they had their two fastest defensemen against Connor McDavid in the playoffs last year. So like the game has kind of changed where if you're gonna face a team with a lot of speed, like the old adage was, hit him to slow him down. And yes, you still do that, but you need defensemen that are fast enough to keep up with those guys. And seeing a Wallman-Seider pairing, I mean, we kind of talked about it earlier. We've seen it a couple times this year. I want to see it more. I agree with you.
I think that we've seen Sherratt the past couple games. He has offense to him. He's good at creating opportunities. He's not afraid to shoot the puck and go retrieve the puck and get it back out. And Mata is a very good stay-at-home defenseman. I think that could work. I just, there's something needs to be done there because I'm not sure that Sherratt is helping Seider. But it seems like Wallman freed Seider up a little bit too. But like you said, that Seider is being a little bit too creative, but it's something, it's a learning process. It's something he's going to learn from and have to change his game to kind of go with. So from Jimmy Hockey on Twitter at @JimmyHockey_, what do you expect from the Red Wings in 2023? A lot of what they're already doing. That's going to depend on what happens closer to the trade deadline. Whether we see guys get shipped off, I think you'll see maybe a couple trades. I think you'll probably see Pia Suter traded. You might see Adam Ernie go. If Bertuzzi comes back, okay, you might see Bertuzzi get traded just to make room and to get some more picks. But I don't think you are going to see any kind of sea change in the Red Wings. Hopefully you don't see what happened to the Red Wings last season, which is the wheels completely fall off and tank the second half of the season. We don't need that. But I don't think you're going to see anything drastic. We said before the season started that we want to see a competitive, even keel team the entire season. And so far, for the most part, we have seen that. Not games like this, apparently against Buffalo, who score 100 goals on us every time we play them. But I think that's what you want to see, is just that same even keel competitiveness night in and night out all the way through.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's the biggest thing. We kind of talked about, Blashill's undoing, and a lot of that was a lot of the blowouts. And, when a team went up 2-0, there was really no fight back. It was just like one thing snowballed to another. And instead of being down, when you're down 2-1 and they score to make it 3-1, you score to make it 3-2 instead of them scoring to make it 4-1 or 5-1. And I think that's been the biggest difference this year. But although you do still see some of the blowouts, this Buffalo game, another Buffalo game that we had, there's been a couple other games on the schedule where games have kind of gotten out of hand. So, they need to control that. The Ranger game was another one. They need to control that. I know that, they really haven't had their whole team all year long, but what team does? So I hate to make the excuses for them, but hopefully, with getting everybody healthy, they can start to turn the ship around. I know they've been playing a little bit better as of late. They won the game against Tampa, and then they won last night against Pittsburgh. So 2 in a row, but now you're getting your asses kicked against Buffalo again. So.
Yeah, I think there's just going to be some teams that have our number for now, and apparently it's Buffalo. Even though Buffalo is not super great this season, it's going to be them. So, but they're one of the top offensive teams in the league, if not the top offensive team in the league, because Tage Thompson, for some reason, became Superman this season. Hopefully that doesn't stick, because it's making the Buffalo fans absolutely fucking insufferable. They will not shut up. They think he's the best player in the entire league. And look at him last season. If he carries it forward, you can say stuff like that. But it could be a one season fluke.
I think he will. I think he's got a ton of skill. He was a guy that was at UConn, that was a really good player at UConn. Played in the World Juniors, was really good in the World Juniors. And it took him a little bit, traded from St. Louis to Buffalo. But I do think he is a good player. I don't know if he'll keep it up this high, scoring with the likes of Draisaitl and McDavid, but I mean, if he's one step below that, I mean, that's still a franchise player for Buffalo, a team that really hasn't had that since Eichel left. So,
Man, the guys St. Louis wish they had back: David Perron, Oscar Sundqvist, Jake Wallman, Tage Thompson. And then you look at them right now, what the Blues are doing, and it's
Robbie Fabry.
Yeah, Robbie Fabry. It's not pretty. From Chris at FoPackJack on Twitter, healthy lines. So like we said, we have guys coming back from IR. The lines are going to get a little squished here. I said, I think the easiest thing you do is you send Soderblom to Grand Rapids. You have extras in guys like Suter or Ernie. Maybe you try to trade one pretty quickly. I don't think you're going to give yourself a situation where you lose someone on waivers. Your top line is probably going to go back to being, and if Bertuzzi is back too, you might get a top line again of Larkin, Bertuzzi, and Raymond. I don't think you're getting a Vrana, Larkin, Raymond right off the bat. You probably will eventually, but not right off the bat. At this point, I'd probably bump Bergeron up. It's hard to figure out what exactly is going to happen, but I mean, I've got a general idea. Let me see if I can find my tweet. So when healthy, I think your top line, like I said, is something like Larkin and Raymond, and probably, I mean, I'm not moving Kubalik back up, but maybe you try Bergeron on the top for a little bit. I think you're not trying Fabry on the top, so your top line's not going to change very much. Your second line is probably going to be Vrana, Kopp, and Perron, which is a fine second line. Or maybe you swap Kubalik in there somewhere. Your third line could be Kubalik, Rasmussen, and Fabry. I think that's a fine third line. And then your fourth line is going to be Bergeron, Veleno, and Sundqvist probably. And your extras are going to be Ernie and Suter. Those are probably going to be your extras up top. And that's, again, it gives you more depth. It gives you more offense. And there are several players in there that are mix and matchable. I mean, you could move Bergeron up and you could start Fabry on the fourth for limited minutes when he comes back. You could start Vrana on the third line with limited minutes. But I don't think you're getting guys like Vrana right into the top line to play over 20 minutes a night right when they're back. Same thing with Fabry. You're not going to play him 15, 16 minutes a night right when they come back. But getting the guys back when they are healthy, I mean, could be a huge injection of offense and hopefully make us a little bit more defensively responsible too.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's, that's the hope, to be able to get, almost as close to fully healthy as you can get. Cause injuries happen. But if you can get to a point where you have a month or two where you have your full team, you can kind of see where this is headed. And I do agree with that. I think that, the biggest thing is being able to finally get some lines that aren't constantly changing and aren't constantly being altered because of all the injuries and everything. And I think that's the biggest thing. I really do. I think some continuity and being able to have your full team there for as long as possible, is huge.
And then things get a little bit sketchy when Bertuzzi and Zadina come back, because then we have absolutely no idea what's going to happen. Although I think Zadina's spot is in jeopardy because Bergeron's come in and just done so well that I don't see really any room for Zadina, because you could say, oh, well, Adam Ernie, but Adam Ernie's been decently effective. I mean, he's scored some goals and he's put on pressure and he plays the body and he just goes out and grinds in a third or fourth line role. That's what he's there to do. I mean, Suter right now has good 5-on-5 possession numbers, but other than that, he's not doing a whole ton. So, I mean, it'll get really interesting when those two come back. But I think with the first two that are slated to return in Fabry and Vrana, it'll be fairly easy to figure out what to do there. From Mo Sider hates pumpkin spice at Mo Sider fanboy on Twitter. Mata and Wallman have been a bit of fresh air, while Sherratt has looked bad. I do not see them bringing up more than one Grand Rapids defenseman next season for a full-time role. Are we in a potential scenario where Yzerman has to or wants to keep Mata and Wallman for another year? Wallman is already here for another year. He was signed to a 2-year contract. I want to keep Mata. I don't know what happens there. Now, Mata is playing very well. And if you think that Johansson or Edvinsson are absolutely ready to go this coming season or next season, then maybe he's playing so well that you do trade him. Or maybe, I mean, Wallman, like you said, is signed for another year. Maybe if you think that Edvinsson brings what Wallman brings in year one, maybe you get something good. These guys are playing themselves into tradable roles where you're if you have to trade them, you're going to get decent pieces because they've been playing well. And that's a great scenario to be in. And you'd hate to see a guy who's just coming on like Wallman get traded, or a guy like Mata who's been fantastic for this team get traded, but it's going to end up being a casualty with your young guys you have coming in anyways.
Yeah, I don't see Wallman going anywhere. Mata potentially. The biggest thing is Edvinsson ready to take that next step, and so far no. So we'll just see what happens there. I don't see any problem in leaving him in GR for now. And then hopefully next year, he'll be up. I think the biggest thing, is him, growing and becoming a better hockey player day in and day out. As for Sherrod, I agree. Sherrod has been not good. Let's just put it that way. Defensively, not good. Offensively, obviously not good either. So he has his moments, obviously, like everybody does. But I think he's exactly what I expected to be. We overpaid him a little bit, which is fine because the cap's going up, but he's not responsible with the puck. And I'll tell you one thing right now. I said this at the beginning and people laughed at me. He's going to be your least favorite Red Wing defenseman before long.
And if you're asking, are we going to get rid of Sherratt? You can't. And it's not going to happen. And Dominic Kubalik is 1 goal away from a hat trick right now. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. He's on hat trick watch. He has scored 2 in a row. The last question from Twitter is from Pete, the professor at Professor V5. After Gallant scratched Lafreniere today, and a ton of talking points came out about his history with young players and development, how do you evaluate the relentless begging for him to be the Red Wings coach since 2017 at this moment in time? We were, I think, against it from the beginning, right? Gallant as head coach, because we wanted the coaching carousel to stop. There was no point in doing it. He had been fired from 2 previous jobs, like a very good Vegas team fired him. And was it Florida too? Florida fired him.
Florida left him on the side of the road.
Yeah. So you take a guy where you're like, there's got to be some issues there. And you see what he's done with a first overall pick, Lafreniere. And it is what it is, because right now he has 35 games played, 5 goals, 12 assists, 17 points is a +3. So 17 and 36. So far in 171 games played over 3 seasons, he's got 69 points, which, well, very nice, is not where you thought he was going to be at this point in his career. And you could say it's development. You could say it's the coach likes to favor vets over kids. And I think that if Gallant was here, we wouldn't have seen Sider probably in such a big role. We probably wouldn't have seen Raymond in such a big role right from the beginning. And no, I don't want that. And the people that did want that, I kept telling them, absolutely not. Just look what happened in the places he's been. He likes vets. He's not a guy who puts a ton of trust into kids, and just let it play out. And I'm so glad we didn't do that, because all the Rangers fans want him gone.
Yeah, I'm not against Gallant. I mean, obviously now I am. I think Newsy's a good coach. This team isn't ready to win yet. I still think that there's a chance that they push, and as they get healthy. But yeah, we can close the book on Gallant to the Red Wings. I don't think that's going to happen. And then you had Kakko as well. That was a high draft pick as well. Who, I mean, Kakko at this point, I don't know. I don't know where the Rangers go from there with Kakko, because I know people talked about them trading him already. And I mean, it's 3 years in now. I mean, Jesus, what a bad look. What a bad look for the Rangers.
So do you trade Tyler Bertuzzi and a pick for Alexis Lafreniere?
I would do it.
Would you?
How old is he? I would do it in 2 seconds.
He's what, 21? Yeah. I mean, I think he's got a massive amount of talent, but you're just not putting him in positions to succeed. And that's
the thing with the Rangers too is the Rangers have so many good players up front. It's hard to fit a spot in. But I mean, you would think that just a guy like Kako or a guy like Lafreniere. I think Lafreniere is miles ahead of where Kako is. But I mean, they even have other guys, that have kind of overpassed them as well. And hell, they told you that they didn't trust these guys when they went out and signed Panarin. So
yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Rangers because, like I said, the fan base is becoming relentless with the Gallant needs to be fired stuff. And eventually, and I don't see the Rangers doing it because they're in a decent position. It's not like they're flailing at the bottom of the standings.
Greg, a New York team wants their coach fired? Where have I seen that before?
You mean every New York team?
Every
in the
New York, he's got to go. He's got to go. He's got to go.
It's just the New York attitude. They want change and they want it now. The last question of the night is from YouTube at Sean Jonkis. Is Jim Nill the reason Dallas has drafted so well? It says, too bad he wasn't in Detroit to help Holland make better choices. It might have shortened the rebuild timeline before Yzerman got here. I go back and forth with how much the general manager actually affects the draft and not the draft experts that they employ. I know when Yzerman came in, he fired people and hired new people and promoted Chris Draper, and the drafting has gotten better. And I do know that the GMs have input on the draft, but I don't think they're sitting there all day doing draft research and watching tape on kids and all that. They rely heavily on the people they surround themselves with to do that. Now, are you saying that maybe you're saying that if Jim Nill was here, he would have helped Holland, which is true, because he would have been surrounding Holland with information and people and all that knowledge. But at the end of the day, the general manager makes the pick based on the information given to them. I don't think they just go in and say, here's my 7 guys. I don't care what anyone else says. But I wouldn't say that Jim Nill is the sole reason Dallas has drafted so well. But the GM is always a contributing factor.
Yeah, Jim Nill's done a good job in Dallas. There's no two ways about it. I mean, they in the same draft they had Ottinger, they had Robertson.
Hold on, breaking news: the Buffalo Sabres must fold and relocate. Jordan Osterley just scored on them.
So it's 4-5.
It's 3-5.
Oh, 5-3. Okay.
Yeah. 12 minutes left.
Well, I turned it off for the Valero Alamo Bowl.
So keep it off because you turned it off and we're coming back.
That's where we're at in Red Wings land right now. Tyler is watching the Valero Alamo Bowl between Texas and Washington before he watches the Red Wings game.
So a beautiful dig on the boards from Berggren gets it over to Andrew Kopp, who feeds it to Osterley for a goal. Amazing.
I love it. But yeah, no, the Stars and Jim Nill have done a good job of drafting and developing. Heiskanen, what was it? Heiskanen, Robertson, and the other guy that they got,
Rupe Hintz.
Was it Hintz? Anyways, they've had a really good, couple of years drafting.
You've also got Ottinger.
Ottinger's a fantastic goalie. Saw him play at BU a lot when he was here. So, I mean, they've done a good job. Nill's done a good job. I do kind of temper the brakes on that a little bit because I do think that, like you said,
I think you were looking for pump the brakes.
Pump the brake. You're right. I do pump the brakes on that a little bit just because you have to surround yourself with those people. So I guess if Ken Holland had Jim Nill still, maybe the rebuild wouldn't be as long. But I mean, Ken Holland still made those decisions to draft those guys and to trade for Eric Cole and trade for Marek Zidlitsky and trade for sign what was it? I can't think of his name right now. I want to say David Booth, but it's not David Booth. Oh, Stephen Weiss.
What about David Legwan?
David Legwan, another one. That was Callie Yarncroc, right? That was traded for him.
I believe so. What about the Justin Abdelkader extensions?
Yeah, that one. There's the Erickson one. There's the Darren Helm. There's Franz Nielsen. I mean, we can go down a rabbit hole if you want to, but there was some really bad signings, and I don't know that Jim Nill really helps that. Yeah, okay, maybe drafting, a guy like Jason Robertson or a guy like Miro Heiskanen. Yeah, sure, that wouldn't But I mean, again, you still have to be in those positions to draft. So I don't think that they would have ever. Maybe would it have helped the rebuild a little bit? Yeah, sure, but I don't know by how much. I think that everything was just so bad for so not things were so bad. The NHL club was great, but everything around it afterwards, it was so bare. There was nothing to pluck from. And even the prospects that were quote unquote over ripening would come up and they would suck, like your Tomas Yurkos and those guys. So I mean, the rebuild was necessary, and I think there wasn't a better guy to do it than Steve Yzerman. So, and it's still going, obviously. So
I think the big thing too was that Holland traded a lot of picks. That was the other part. You didn't put yourself in a position to draft well because you kept trading picks away, and you were not drafting high because you were trying to rebuild on the fly. So I think, and you can point at the misses like Svechnikov, who I can't really blame it because a lot of it was injury. You can point at taking Michael Rasmussen. Granted, Rasmussen has turned into a very good role player for this team. But Rasmussen was drafted too high. Taking Cholowski and Hronek, in trading away that Datsuk contract to take Cholowski and Hronek instead of getting Chychrun. That was not a great move. So, I mean, who's to know what would have happened if he stayed here, who he would have picked up? People now say, well, Philip Zadina, you can count that in there too. What's going to happen when he is
Quinn
healthy
Hughes
again? Sure, you could add Quinn Hughes. I mean, you probably could still have Quinn Hughes because they said they'll trade him. But I can't pin it solely on Holland, but at the end of the day, he's the one marching up there to make the pick. So, but that's going to do it for our mailbag tonight. That is going to do it for our episode. Tyler, I want to get your final thoughts before we sign off.
My final thoughts are drink and drink a lot, because this team tonight, anyways, is not giving us much to write home about, although they're starting to come back. So maybe I'll pump the brakes again.
It's becoming more respectable as it goes.
But yeah, I mean, my final thoughts are just enjoy the season. Like I said, there's a lot still left in the season. There's still a lot of hope in terms of health and everything else. Hopefully everyone enjoys their new year. If you're a Michigan fan, go blue, and you guys have a good night.
Yeah, we're not going to be back until after the new year. Go ahead.
And you can follow me on Twitter at SealDog91.
Yeah, we're not going to be back until after the new year. So happy new year to everyone. This episode should go out on the 30th, hopefully. And on Monday, which is the 2nd, I think Monday is the 2nd, we do have a special guest coming on. It's an exciting one that I don't think anyone has had on yet, but it will be really fun for the Twitter crowd. This one coming up. But that's going to do it for me. You can follow me online at Breaking the Wing. You can follow the Grindline Podcast online at Grindline Pod. I'll give a thanks to the Hockey Podcast Network at HockeyPodNet for hosting our podcast. We also give a shout out to Vintage Detroit, which is the only place you should get your Detroit jerseys from and worked on. Go head over to YouTube and sub to our channel and click the little notification button to be notified whenever things go live. The more views we get on there, it helps us out a lot. We also like to give a shout out to Howie's Hockey Tape, where if you use the promo code GRINDLINE, you get 10% off your order. Use that same promo code on Bring Hockey Back, you get 12% off. And you can go to redbubble.com and search the Grindline to find our merch. But that is going to do it for us tonight. So for Tyler, I am Greg. You stay classy, Hockey Town.